Hello, college biology students. I want to just do a quick video to wrap up our chapter on cellular respiration, and then we're going to combine this chapter with chapter 8 on photosynthesis. So we'll do a quick overview of that as well. And honestly, I don't remember if we talked about the electron transport chain. I know I posted a couple videos yesterday, but I don't think we actually went through it. So I think to really understand the electron transport chain, we have to, of course, understand the structure of the mitochondria a bit. So this is my very top-notch drawing here. The mitochondria, there's an inner and outer membrane, and then all of these inner folds on this membrane. And actually, this should be, yeah, it's not a perfect drawing. This should continue on here and kind of close that. But anyway, so as we talked about the carrier molecules that are made in the Krebs cycle that are just meant to carry energy into the next cycle. So as those carrier molecules come in, and there's a buildup of more positively charged molecules on one side of the membrane than on the other side. And remember that nature doesn't really like a concentration gradient. So when we have that difference in charges across the membrane, we really get, nature wants to equalize that. So I always say it's a little bit like lightning, where there's a buildup of opposite charges in an area in the sky from cloud to cloud or from cloud to ground. And that's actually what causes a bolt of lightning. And then we have, you know, the area where there's a lot more positive charges, the area where there's a lot more negative charges, and that bolt of lightning, that incredible amount of energy, is really just causing the equilibrium between those two charges. So the positive charges are going to move in one direction, and the negative charges in another direction to kind of equalize that. And so that's the same thing that's happening in the mitochondria. But as it tries to equalize these charges by moving positive charges through this membrane, it actually moves it through the enzyme called ATP synthase. And every time it moves the proton through here, it's going to generate some ATP. And that's the whole point of cellular respiration, is to make ATP. So it takes all those carrier molecules like the NADH and so on, and it's going to, excuse me, and so it's all about making that ATP. And it does, in this electron transport chain, oxygen is the final electron acceptor. It also accepts a couple of hydrogen ions, so this is where water is actually a byproduct of cellular respiration. Where does the oxygen come from? Well, that depends whether you're a plant or an animal, right? Because if you're a plant, you broke down CO2 with some water and some sunlight, and you actually produced oxygen, and if you're an animal, you probably had to breathe it in, right? So the yield then, energy yield from all the steps of aerobic respiration, a net yield of 36, because remember we used a couple of them up. Again, this is in a perfect case scenario. Does it always produce that many? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Things have to be absolutely perfect. This is a pretty variable number, but it could produce as much as 36, and you'll notice most of them are produced in that electron transport chain. And then these are the obviously the chemical equations for cellular respiration, and then photosynthesis. So this ATP, and I know we talked earlier about now the way that this ATP is going to provide energy for cellular processes is really by phosphorylation or giving up one of its phosphate molecules. And then there's a couple of other types of anaerobic respiration that we really didn't talk about. Methanogens, CO2 is reduced to methane gas. And maybe you've heard that cows contribute to global warming because the production of methane gas that actually occurs in cattle. So this is the production of methane is produced in different animals. It's not just cows, but that's a special kind of pathway. And then sulfur bacteria, inorganic sulfate is reduced to hydrogen sulfide. There's early sulfate reducers set the stage for the evolution of photosynthesis. So we think this evolved very early on, and kind of was a precursor to photosynthesis. In the early at deep ocean vents we have bacteria that actually can live off of uh, sulfur-rich material that's coming from deep ocean vents. And then the metabolism of fat. Remember, fats provide more energy than carbohydrates do. Fats are broken down to fatty acids and glycerol, and this yields 20% more energy actually than glucose. So when we eat fats, we actually do get more energy from that. It's broken down a little bit differently. And I know we talked about this slide already. I jumped back because I just think this is so important. So we talk a lot about ATP's made and ATP's made in the mitochondria and how important ATP is. But remember, kind of that whole purpose is this adenosine triphosphate with the three phosphate molecules carries energy. Excuse me. Carries that energy in those phosphates, and we say that it phosphorylates other molecules by donating one of these phosphates. Then this ATP, when it does that, see there's our little energy being released, then becomes ADP, and now it has to go through and get rephosphorylated to become ATP. So that requires that ATP synthase in the mitochondrial membrane in order for that to occur. And that's it for this chapter. Let's work on the questions for chapter number 7 on respiration today.